Ghost of Sparta takes place in between the first two games, and we get to see Kratos in his prime as the god of war. In the beginning of 2, it establishes how powerful and ruthless Kratos was as the god of war, and I feel like this game breaks that a bit, as we're back to leveling up our equipment and slicing through undead soldiers. Honestly, the main thing I noticed about this was how well the previous games have blended gameplay and narrative, how it all had a reason and made sense. Even the simple things like countering were done through gaining equipment, where in this game, Kratos just can with his blades. I understand from a gameplay point of view why these things had to be done, but it feels just slightly less care-forward than the others. Ghost of Sparta is also obviously another PSP game, and therefore has very similar in its gameplay to Chains of Olympus. I think what sets Ghost of Sparta apart is particularly its narrative, introducing new elements and furthering Kratos' story in a different way. In saying that though, while I'm still very much enjoying this franchise, I can certainly feel the fatigue in the gameplay systems setting in. The base combat feels almost identical to Chains of Olympus, still the same fast and fluid hack and slash style that the first game built, but slightly slower and clunkier on these PSP games. The stun lock issues I still had issues with, as well as the timing between mine and enemy attacks. The largest change to combat was Thera's Bane. I love the imagery of it being ripped from the chest of the Titan Thera, and allows the blade to be engulfed in fire to deal more damage with the attacks, and is particularly useful against most enemies' shields and their armor. Thera's Bane operates on a cooldown. While I like the initial idea, I have a major issue in the fact that this item feels bad for intrinsic motivation the series has built through its combat. So much of God of War's combat is based on the fact that Kratos is a badass, slicing through enemies with these visually visceral blades. And the issue with Thera's Bane is that due to how much it makes impact in the combat, when it's not available, Kratos feels so much weaker in comparison and feels tonally inconsistent with the rest of the series. Ghost of Sparta, like Chains of Olympus, only has two weapons. First, the blades of Athena, and secondly, the arms of Sparta. Ghost of Sparta's narrative all links back to Kratos' time as a kid and warrior within Sparta, and there's something so intrinsically special about seeing his weapons before he was a servant of the gods, reacquired by him. It's reminiscent of the scene in 2018 where Kratos retrieves the blades. They're not only great narratively, but also essential to the experience, as the shield allows Kratos to still move forward while being attacked and acts as a blocking mechanic, while the spear very uniquely is a close quarters weapon as well as can be thrown and acts like a ranged weapon. Magic also returns in Ghost of Sparta, the first being the Eye of Atlantis, which is reminiscent of Poseidon's Rage from the first game, using lightning attacks against enemies. The second is the Scourge of Hermes. Kratos gets this after defeating Hermes, and I found it very useful for how it could restore health. And lastly, the Horn of Boreas. I found this to be very visually and gameplay satisfying, being able to freeze enemies, opening them up for a barrage of attacks. Puzzles again are much like Chains of Olympus. They do a good job in breaking up the combat and help with the pacing, but they again feel very simple based on the same mechanic. I always appreciate diving into more of this world and lore, and the locations they provide in each of these games do just that. The Temple of Poseidon is visually striking, and getting to actually see the city of Atlantis. I really appreciate going to Sparta for how important that location is too for Kratos and its history, and seeing the soldiers there converting the Temple of Ares to one dedicated to Kratos adds so much to his character and the journey he's been through. To be honest, the story surprised me a lot. It simultaneously managed to bring in so many new elements and not feel like it's rehashing the old ones, while keeping the same themes from the first few games. The importance of family, the Greek tragedy, betrayal of the gods, and prophecy. The game opens with Kratos having a vision of the past and a woman calling for his help, making Kratos sail to Atlantis to find the woman. Kratos finds her, in which she turns out to be his mother. His mother explains that Kratos' brother Deimos, who was taken as a child, is still alive and in death's domain. This is all before she transforms into a monster and Kratos has to defeat her and kill his own mother. Previously, we'd only known about Kratos' wife and daughter Calliope. And here we get information more about his past and family, a mother he had to kill and a brother taken away as a child. I didn't know Kratos' family life could get more tragic before this. Kratos meets and defeats Hermes, Thanatos' daughter, and makes his way to Sparta, seeing the people there worship him. The story hinges on, and gives more context to Kratos' eventual destruction of Olympus in God of War 3. We find out the Oracle foretold the event, claiming it would be a marked warrior that would bring the destruction. The gods wrongly thought it was Kratos' brother Deimos, as he was born with strange birthmarks that Kratos had tattooed on himself as a homage to his brother. Ares and Athena come to their home as a child to take Deimos away. Kratos attempts to stop them, but is ultimately unsuccessful, with Ares hitting Kratos and giving him the scar on his right eye. This brings some odd things into context about the older games, such as Ares literally taking Kratos' brother and then Kratos becoming his servant later in life. I do like the nature of this prophecy though, how the gods attempting to stop the prophecy accidentally are the ones that cause it to become real in the first place. Kratos reaches Death's domain and finds Deimos. Deimos is rightfully angry it took Kratos so long to find him, but in Kratos' defense, he didn't know where he was or if he was still alive. Kratos and Deimos begin to fight before Thanatos interrupts. During this fight, Thanatos tells Kratos that he was the marked warrior from the prophecy, the mark of the ashes from his wife and child, making Deimos' capture and imprisonment all for nothing. During the fight with Thanatos, Deimos is using the arms of Sparta and Kratos is using a button prompt for when he wants Deimos to attack. This feels like it was the basis which Atreus attacking in the combat in God of War 2018 was designed. Thanatos eventually kills Deimos. This causes Kratos to be filled with rage and then destroy Thanatos. This adds more tragedy to Kratos' life, going on a quest to find his long-lost brother, only for him to be killed moments after his rescue. In a beautiful scene, Kratos carries Deimos to a grave dug by the gravedigger. Athena appears and says that his mortal ties are severed and he can become a god now. Kratos refuses, wanting to instead enact revenge upon the gods. The post-credit scene, we see the gravedigger placing Kratos' mother in a grave next to Deimos, with a third seemingly for Kratos himself, as the gravedigger says, "Only one remains." This game adds a lot to Kratos as a character, as well as context for the story. It very clearly sets up God of War 2 and initiates Kratos' disdain for the rest of the gods themselves, fueling his actions for attacking Rhodes at the start of 2. Obviously, Thanatos was now the third god Kratos had killed, Persephone, Ares, and Thanatos, so I can see why Zeus was becoming very fearful of Kratos by this point, and eventually led to Zeus' actions in God of War 2. God of War Ghost of Sparta is an even better spin-off than Chains of Olympus. It builds on the gameplay aspect and has more unique features than it, while still telling the story while not essentially to experience the trilogy, only enhances it and Kratos as a character. For me personally though, a bit of fatigue with this franchise formula is starting to set in, and we'll see if Ascension can be something different or if it will continue the trend. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've had a really great time playing through this franchise, and I'm excited to finish the Greek saga with Ascension before returning back to 2018. If you like this video, please leave a like, and let me know what you thought of God of War Ghost of Sparta in the comments below. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and until then, cheers and have a good one.